Morant with a running start. It dunks! Oh my goodness!
Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn his heat. It's gone! Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining. Conley now with three. Count it! A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance.
Adams going long. Morant! He hit it! John Morant! Insanity!
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. My name is Keith Parrish. The Grizzlies were missing 11 players against the Sacramento Kings, and yet they played them very closely, ended up losing at the end. There's a lot to talk about from this game, and I'll get to it right after I tell you to join my Patreon community, patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. Come hang out with other NBA fans in the Slack channel, get exclusive bonus content. Join the Grits and Grinds only Slack channel. Do it all, patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. All right. The Grizzlies didn't have basically anybody but Jaren. I don't mean to downplay the role of Xavier Tillman and Santi Aldama, but the injury report for this game was the most preposterous thing we've seen so far. Of course, we're dealing with long-term injuries to a lot of the big names. Then you add in LaRavia being gone, and we had these new names pop up on the injury report. No Conchar. No Zaire Williams. All of a sudden, Vince Williams Jr. was questionable for the game, and you were faced as a Grizzlies organization and fan base with this prospect of looking at that report and saying, wait a minute, if everybody misses, we only have 7 guys. You have to have 8 guys by rule to play, and well, guess what? The Grizzlies were forced to add a player to the team. They called up Matthew Hurt from the Hustle. You might remember him from Summer League. They called him up, gave him a 10-day contract so the Grizzlies would have 8 players, and they rolled the ball out there, and that's who played. The Grizzlies started Scottie Pippen Jr., David Roddy, Santi Aldama, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Xavier Tillman. Chris Harrington said it was, a G League point guard and 4 power forwards. True. It was a very weird lineup. Lots of guys pressed into service, playing heavy minutes that they otherwise wouldn't have gotten. And lo and behold, the Grizzlies jump out to a 15-point lead. They won the first quarter 33-18. It was a great example of three-point shooting variance. It was sort of like a 2 versus 15 NCAA tournament matchup. But the three-point shooting variance in the first quarter, the Grizzlies made 7 out of 10 three-pointers. Matthew Hurt, just first NBA game, made his first 2. So the Grizzlies were 7 out of 10 on three-pointers in the first quarter. The Kings were 0 out of 10. And that 15-point lead, it basically held on until the very end of the game. Yeah, the Kings got within 1 in the second quarter, but then the Grizzlies built it back up. And then it was halftime, it was close. Third quarter, the Grizzlies built it back up. The Grizzlies were leading by 4 with 4.5 minutes left, but unfortunately, they ran out of steam, and the Kings hung on for the victory. The Kings got a monster performance from Domantas Sabonis. Sabonis had a career-high 26 rebounds. He tied a Grizzlies opponent's franchise record for the most rebounds by any opposing player, tied that with Enes Freedom. But the Grizzlies couldn't box out Sabonis. It was as if he was just in a different class of player from everybody else on the court. I mean, Jaren, overall, as good of a player, I think, as Sabonis, but when it comes to rebounding, no. Jaren could not keep Sabonis off the glass. You thought maybe Tillman could slow him down a little bit. No, not at all. The Kings badly out-rebounded the Grizzlies, and Sabonis himself, again, 26 rebounds. If you just look at the final 3 quarters, it's maybe more of what you expected this matchup was going to be. The Kings won the final 3 quarters 85-61. Grizzlies only shot 32.7% after the first quarter. But that doesn't actually tell the whole story of this game, because somehow Taylor Jenkins stole the storyline of, look how incredibly our undermanned Memphis Hustle plus Jaren Jackson Jr. team played against the Sacramento Kings. No, he kind of stole that storyline with his benching of Jaren Jackson Jr. with 3 minutes and 43 seconds left in a 1-point game. I was a little bit outraged in the loss against the Pacers that Taylor Jenkins benched Jaren with 6 minutes left, 6.5 minutes left with 5 fouls. In this one, 3 minutes and 43 seconds left. You're in a 1-point game. And he took Jaren out when Jaren got his 5th foul. Should Jaren have not committed that over the back foul? Of course. Jaren bricks a 3 badly. Jaren missed all of his 3-point attempts in this game. He bricks a 3. He knows it's off. He comes crashing into the lane, trying to get the ball. He's got to pull up there. Like, he's got to be able to recognize, I'm not going to get this ball. But taking Jaren out with the 5th foul with 3 minutes and 43 seconds left is preposterous. What are you waiting for? What are you hoping? How in the world are your odds of victory increased by saving Jaren for what, the final 2 minutes? There's like 10 possessions left. If he fouls out, he fouls out. He did not foul out. The Grizzlies lose by 9. Jaren finishes the game with 5 fouls. This is beyond the pale. You give Taylor Jenkins credit for having this shorthanded roster ready to play. You give Taylor Jenkins credit for the Grizzlies going 8-7 in January, despite having to use all kinds of weird starting lineups. This starting lineup was the 27th different starting lineup of the season. That's the most of any team in the NBA this year. But Taylor, you stole the story by doing something real dumb. Taking out your best player in a 1-point game. You're down by 1. There's 3 minutes and 40 seconds left. Indefensible. Absolutely indefensible. After the game, it was the first question at the post-game press conference. Why did you take out Jaren with 3 minutes and 43 seconds left? Taylor said, we were on defense. I hope to buy a possession. Maybe I could have called a timeout and put him back in earlier. It was unconvincing the way he answered the question. He did not say, Tone, I should have put him back in earlier. He was like, maybe I should have put him back in earlier. Like, they put him in when the Kings make a corner 3-pointer to go up 6. The Grizzlies call timeout with 2 minutes left. Jaren was not like at the scorer's table waiting to come in. This was not, hey, come out for defense, go to the scorer's table. Maybe something will happen. We'll get a stoppage. We'll put you right back in. No. The Grizzlies had 3 offensive possessions without Jaren. They scored on the first one, David Roddy little hook. But then they had 2 more offensive possessions. Jaren is just seated on the bench. It's madness. I wish somebody at the press conference, either it was Chris Harrington who asked the question, like, why'd you take Jaren out? I wish someone had followed up, maybe just a little bit more aggressively. I understand why they didn't, because frankly, those Grizzlies post-game press conferences are very tiny and awkward. There's not many people in there. And it's weird to, openly question the coach. And, you could argue that's the job of the media. Okay, fine. I'm just telling you from personal experience, I'm not sure I would have been brave enough. I wish I would have. To be like, I'm sorry, Taylor, can you further explain how you think that, even that phrasing sounds combative. Like, how does taking Jaren out with 3 minutes and 43 seconds left increase your odds of winning? Like, there's no defense for it. And it seems like a bit. It's like a joke. Like, oh, you were mad when I took him out with 5 fouls with 6 minutes to go in the previous game? What if I take him out under 4 minutes in a 1-point game when we're using emergency hardship guys, when we're playing all of our two-way players? He stole the story. It was wild. Now, as far as Jaren's on-court play, Jaren has culpability. Stop fouling. Like, honestly, the officials let him play in this game. Jaren was frustrated. He had a bad shooting night, missed all 4 of his 3-pointers, like I said, but was only 6 out of 14 on his 2-pointers. They were letting him play, and Jaren was frustrated. He got to the foul line 12 times. I think most Grizzlies fans feel like Jaren should have gotten to the foul line even more. To my eye, they were letting them play both ways. And even with letting them play, Jaren picked up 5 fouls. He's got to be better. He's got to be better on offense. If Jaren's better on offense, we're not in this situation. I mean, Jaren finished with 22 points, but only 3 rebounds. He got out-rebounded by 23 when you compare him straight up with Sabonis. I know his job is not necessarily to be the big rebounder. He's handling all of our offensive load, basically. But, if Jaren plays a little bit better, it doesn't come down to being able to argue this, Taylor Jenkins' point again about subbing your guys out with 5 fouls. I mean, you got outscored 7-2 in the 100 seconds you put Jaren on the bench. You put him back in, you're down 6 with 2 minutes to go. Jaren doesn't even touch the ball, basically, on the next 2 possessions. Scottie Pippen Jr. has a really tough reverse layup attempt. David Roddy misses the corner 3-pointer. I think those were the 2 shots when Jaren got back in. I guess I can talk about the players now. I can't. I'm honestly stunned. Even broke whatever expectation I had. I don't expect much when it comes to playing through foul trouble, but this was a new low, a new standard. I mean, hopefully this will be the point where he wakes up and realizes this is wrong. What am I doing? I would have appreciated or even understood if he was like, that's my mistake. I thought there was 4 minutes and 43 seconds left. I thought there was 5 minutes and 43 seconds left. Saying, I didn't understand how much time was left in the game. I'd be like, well, that's a pretty bad mistake, but at least that's a mistake. To be like, no, I took him out on purpose. Indefensible. Jaren did have some nice plays, by the way. I should recognize that behind the back move for an awesome dunk in the first half. Pretty sweet. Santi Aldama was the small forward to start the game. He made a bunch of those 3-pointers in the first quarter. He finished with 5 made 3-pointers. That's 1 off his career high. He scored 16 points, got 7 rebounds, 2 assists. He did miss all of his 2-pointers. Not the best. The Grizzlies as a team, I think, shot 38% on their 2-pointers. It seemed like Santi maybe relished the opportunity to play a bigger role, and he was able to step up, maybe sort of like he did on Team Spain in FIBA, but he seemed comfortable with the extra usage that came his way. I think it's a little bit of a disappointment that Gigi Jackson and David Roddy did not seem that comfortable with the extra usage. Gigi made some huge fourth quarter threes. He kept the Grizzlies in this game when Jaren set out, which I will assume was his normally scheduled subbing out pattern. And let's not say Taylor Jenkins took him out with 4 fouls with 7 minutes left. I think Jaren was going to go to the bench anyway for a couple minutes because he'd already played, this longer stint when he went out. But Gigi made some big fourth quarter threes to keep the Grizzlies in it. But in the first half, he was scoreless. Basically every move Gigi had off the dribble, every shot attempt where a dribble came before the shot was just very raw and very ugly looking. He looked like a G League player. I mean, we love that he's hitting threes. You can be encouraged that Gigi scored 12 points in the second half, but a lot of the moves were pretty gross looking, very raw. And Roddy had been on this great scoring streak, and then he gets this game. You're like, all right, man. Basically, you're going to get any shot you want. You're going to get a ton of minutes, and we need points. Somebody's got to score. I think you could say it's pretty disappointing that he only had 9 points, missed all 4 of his 3-point attempts, was 3 out of 9 from the field. Now, I think we can commend Scottie Pippen Jr. for his game, a pretty solid bounce-back game after that ugly performance he had against the Pacers. Pippen had 12 points, had 5 assists, and 3 steals in his first career start. Not much more to talk about this game. I mean, honestly, I'll go through everybody who suited up. Tillman, 10 points, 3 assists, 3 steals, 5 rebounds. Matthew Hurt, we can give him credit again. Scored 10 points in his first NBA game, made 2 out of 3 3-pointers. Congratulations to him on getting that call up. And I guess we can wrap this shorter episode with just talk about the roster moves that the Grizzlies made. So the Grizzlies were very active on Tuesday, where they were granted these hardship exceptions to sign guys to 10-day contracts. That's, of course, how they got to sign Matthew Hurt. We'd been expecting this for a while, that we knew the Grizzlies were going to have the opportunity to add guys on 10-day contracts. There'd been some question, why hadn't it happened yet? Some thought of the Grizzlies just basically saving every dollar under the salary cap, because they are approaching the luxury tax line, sort of, again, depending on what happens, whether or not they sign Gigi Jackson to a regular contract. And then if they take in, extra money before the trade deadline or up until the trade deadline, they're probably monitoring that closely. And maybe the thing that pushed them over the edge, of course, was these injuries. And I don't know if we can read into the severity of some of these injuries with the fact that they actually went ahead and filled all these 10-day spots. Luke Kennard missed the game, and I feel like that's troublesome because this is not like a questionable or doubtful. He was a straight out again with his injury, and of course he hasn't been super healthy for the team. So maybe Luke's going to miss a few more games. Maybe this means the Conchar and Zaire Williams doubtful designations mean they might miss the game on Thursday. Maybe Vince is going to miss another game. I don't know. I'm now just kind of conjecturing based on them going ahead and filling all of these spots. Maybe they're just waiting for the certain guys, the right guys that they wanted to open up. Of course, they had, the ability to add Matthew Hurt off the hustle, but they've now added two more guys. As of Tuesday morning, they added Tosan Evbuomwan. Never heard of this guy, I'll be honest. I hope I got his pronunciation correct. It is not spelled anywhere close to Uwoma, but that's what I believe it's pronounced as. He is a forward that's been playing for the Motor City Cruise in the G League. He helped Princeton make the Sweet 16 last year. Big shout out to Mitchell from the Grits and Grinds Slack channel, which you can join yourself at patreon.com/fastbreakfast. Mitchell gives me this quote from Princeton's coach, Mitch Henderson. He said, "Tucson's passing, you won't see that again at Princeton for 50 years. He compared his skill as a passer to a, quote, a brilliant blinding light from heaven. And then the Motor City Cruise head coach said, Tosan is, or maybe it's Tosan. I'm so sorry, I don't know. Tosan is a Swiss Army knife. I'd play him 1 through 5 in a lot of situations. A luxury to have on our team. So maybe Tosan can help out the Grizzlies and get some playing time in the next few games. And then the Grizzlies also added big man Trey Jemison. This has been a guy who a lot of people had been clamoring for earlier in the year when we were looking at like Bismack Biyombo and letting Bismack go and trying to find help in the front court. And Jemison is just a big, my understanding, speaking from a position of ignorance, my understanding he's a rebounding athletic big, just a straight up center. He played for the Birmingham Squadron in the G League. He recently finished a 10-day stint on the Wizards. So maybe the Grizzlies are going to give him a look. Whether or not these guys play over like Tillman, that might tip the Grizzlies' hands for what they might be thinking coming up to the trade deadline. I mean, maybe again, these are just emergency bodies that they want to get a better look at, and that is them using their resources to sign guys to these 10-day contracts. And these, so these 10-day contracts will, of course, carry them through next week. Jake LaRavia is supposed to be reevaluated before these 10-day contracts are up. So maybe LaRavia, gets in. He's supposedly, if we trust the injury announcement, his reevaluation would come this Sunday. So maybe he'll miss the next 3 games. And then, I feel like you'd give him a chance to play. Like if LaRavia doesn't play over Uwama, it's probably a bad sign for Jake LaRavia's future on the Grizzlies. And then, looking further out, we're about 9 more games away from Marcus Smart being reevaluated. I'm just keeping these, on the horizon in the forefront of my mind. He's supposed to be reevaluated on February 22nd if they stick with those original timelines they announced. So that would be at least 9 games missed. That, of course, carries us through the All-Star break. So maybe Marcus returns in 10 games and then Bane in 11 or 12. Hopefully not much more than that. And finally, the NBA is announcing the rosters for the Rising Stars Challenge later this afternoon. Was checking it out. We're all, I think, hopeful that Vince Williams Jr. could get the call up. I don't even honestly know, this is embarrassing for me, if they're going to do it rookie sophomore or world versus US. If it's rookie sophomore, Vince has a chance at being one of the 10 sophomores they choose. It's not a good chance, okay? The odds are low. If it's USA versus world, almost no chance. If you look at the 10 best rookies and sophomores from the US, he's not going to get the call. I don't expect him to make it. I'll be pleasantly surprised if he does, but just looking at the available first and second year players, no, it's going to be very surprising if he gets the call up. But, hopefully he does. Because if he doesn't get the call up, it would be very sad that the Grizzlies might be totally totally not represented at All-Star Weekend in Indianapolis. That, of course, another bad part of a pretty bad season. Anyways, I appreciate you guys checking out this episode as always. Again, if you want to join that Slack channel where we Grizzlies fans are sharing quotes from Tosan Evbuomwan's ex-coaches, well, you can do that at patreon.com/fastbreakbreakfast. Subscribe to the Grits and Grinds YouTube channel if you don't already. You guys have a good Tuesday. I'll talk to you soon. Go Grizz!